Welcome to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller, the podcast. I'm joined by Seth.
Hey, welcome, guys. Thanks for finding us on the internet.
Now, these shows originally aired on Brookings Radio, but now they're all here for your enjoyment. I hope you like it.
There you go. Sit back, enjoy the show, relax. Let us know if you want to see anything on future shows. As we said, this comes out live in the Brookings area, but enjoy this archive episode.
Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. Welcome to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. We all start somewhere. For me, the quest for better beer eventually led to my first taste of Sam Adams Boston Lager, and then it was game on. Starting the craft beer journey this week on Beer Untapped. For Seth Cook of Wooden Legs, it involved a trip to Chicago and England not long after he turned 21.
Me and my buddy drove to Chicago, stayed at some friend's house that I had went to school with before, and had a sixer mixer of Goose Island. I'd lived in Colorado, and I'd even lived in Chicago before. But this was the first time that we actually kind of sat down to reminisce and talk about the old days and, kind of catch up over really, really good beers. But this was previous, obviously, to even when Goose Island sold. This is back when Goose Island was really kind of just a regional. They're still great, but they
stuff like their Honkers Ale, stuff like that.
Honkers Ale, and then we had the 312, and I think we had their IPA, and just a mixer sixer. And these are what these guys had in their fridge.
From there, it was on to England.
My buddy Steve, as soon as I got to Cambridge, he said, "Let's go to the pub. Let's go out for a pint." And we went out to a proper, hand-laid brick and mortar and stone pub and pulled a couple pints of, I think it was Green King on the Pullman on the beer engine. And it was good. It was another experience.
When he got back to South Dakota, there wasn't yet much for craft beer, but the spark had been ignited. It would eventually lead to home brewing, then to Wooden Legs. Don Choate, his brewer at Wooden Legs, his first craft beer, one that was ahead of its time and is no longer brewed.
After I turned 21, I was in Vermilion at the time, and all my peers were drinking Busch Light and those kind of beers, and it never really left me satisfied. And I remember I took a trip to Sioux City, Iowa, and we went to a bar, and I had a Pete's Wicked Ale for the first time, and that was my first craft beer. And I was just amazed how good it was and how different beer could be, and it kind of opened my eyes.
He also began seeking different beers.
A lot of the craft beer movement, I think, evolved from, people trying different beers and realizing, hey, we can't get these beers regularly. Let's start making them on our own. And that began my interest in homebrewing. It's like, well, I can't get a pale ale or a Pete's Wicked Ale. And a lot of the homebrew movement was born from that idea.
Over the past several months, I've asked a bunch of people to tell me about the beer that got them started in craft beer. Here's David Pasica from New Belgium, Rich Droughty from Bank Brewing, and Kate Hayes from Minor Brewing.
It's more of a brewery. When I visited the New Belgium Brewery and had the Fat Tire and Mighty Arrow for the first time, I was hooked. And the brewery experience itself brought me into the craft beer scene full on, and ever since then. And now I work for the brewery, and I'm really excited about that.
The beer that got me into craft beer was definitely Fat Tire. That was the beer that came to South Dakota, and everyone was craving about it. And we had to go to Rapid City, and all we could find was the 22-ounce bombers, and it really opened my eyes.
Odell Mercenary. I love it. And I'm not usually a hop person, but it's so beautifully balanced.
I was going to say, that's a big beer to
it
get
is.
into craft
Isn't that
beer.
funny?
Yeah, that's a big start.
It is, but I think with that hop character, they've just got a great malt profile with it, so it's not so just hop on the palate, and it blew me away and kicked off a love that I have now for craft beer.
We'll have more of those later in the show, and Beer Untapped returns right after this.
B-double-E-double-R-U-N, Beer Run. B-double-E-double-R-U-N, Beer Run.
Welcome back to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller as we discuss getting started in craft beer. Now, we've heard some of the beers that started the journey for several people. If you're interested, don't be intimidated. Yeah, there's lots of stuff out there, but that's part of the fun. A brew pub like Wooden Legs is a great place to get started.
I've talked to a lot of people that when they've come into Wooden Legs Brewing Company, this is the first brew pub they've went into, or craft beer bar in some cases. And that's probably been the most fun experiences, knowing that we've at least helped introduce them to some craft beer. You know, I've got people now, we've been open for 2.5 years, I've got people that I've seen on occasion for the last 2.5 years that maybe started coming in not having any idea what they want, and now they come in and are just craft beer aficionados, just love doing it.
Another great resource, the Make Your Own 6-pack or the Mixer Sixer, available at many bottle shops these days, including Brookings Liquor Store.
Go and find a Mixer Sixer. Even if you're picking it by label color, I don't care. Or pick it by style. I'm going to do nut browns, or I'm going to pick anything in the cooler that says Pale Ale on it. Here's the thing that I think people get a little scared, is if you don't like a craft beer, that doesn't make you wrong. There's beers out there that I care more for, and there's beers that I care less for. Doesn't make those beers wrong either. Mm-hmm. You never know until you go to start plucking through them and find the ones you like.
It's amazing to go into your local beer store and see the variety that there is, and that's one of my favorite things to do too. It's like just get 6 and try different styles, try different brands.
And there's almost always something new to try. Drew Eklund with some of the new stuff available this week at Brookings Liquor Store.
New breweries, new packaged beer from a couple of new breweries. The first is Toppling Goliath out of Decorah, Iowa. And these are all $8.99 a 4-pack. Highly rated brewery. First one is called Rover Truck Oatmeal Stout. The next one is Golden Nugget IPA. And the last one from Toppling Goliath is called Pseudo Sue Pale Ale. And this is the one people are seeking out. This is the one that really gets talked about. Drinks like an IPA almost. And it's a world-class beer. The next brewery that we have here is New Holland out of Holland, Michigan. The first beer we have from them is called Mad Hatter IPA, another solid IPA. Then we have Cabin Fever, a seasonal brown ale. The last one we have from New Holland is called Dragon's Milk, $14.99 a 4-pack.
And that one's an outstanding bourbon barrel-aged imperial stout. Finally today, some more starter craft beers from some folks. Here's Chad Cheney from Brickway Brewing and Distillery, Ricardo Terabelzi from Fernson Brewing, my wife, Susan Miller, and Brookings Mayor Tim Reed.
The beer that got me into craft beer would be Boulevard Unfiltered Wheat. And I still drink it to this day. I love the fact they do the Radler now that's blended with that beer. Just super easy to drink, sessionable.
The beer that got me into craft beer was Brother Thelonious. It was one of those beers that kind of blew my palate away. I'm like, this isn't like any other beer I've ever had.
That's a serious starter beer.
I know, right? Beer can be more than just light beer, you know what I mean? And my background's more wine, and that just kind of, I guess that was more of my crossover beer, where it crossed me from wine to beer.
I used to not find beer anything that I would want to drink. It was all just boring stuff. But then I got a mixed 6, and I just usually pick out beer from the label. And I got this beer, and it was called Blue Star. And then when I drank it, it was like, oh, so this is what everybody's all worked up about.
The James Page Amber, I think it had another name after Amber. It just happened to be, I was traveling a lot at the time, and they served it on what was then Northwest Airlines. And it was just a very different beer. And that started me on the search. And really, I stuck with the ambers at that time, just kind of searching out different ambers.
That's it for this week's edition of Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. Until next time, drink local and drink responsibly. Thank you for listening to this archived edition of Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. Feel free to listen to other episodes, and if there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future show, please let us know. Thanks again.